left. Once it's live, you could share. Preparing, loading. I think we're loading. Someone tell me when we're live. And we're live. Good morning, everybody. It is October 22nd. And if you are not living under a rock, you know what that means. It's International Stuttering Awareness Day. And for months, I've been preparing for this day, for this moment, for these people that you are looking at. My name is Uri Schneider from Schneider Speech. If you're popping in, you're in the presence of some very special people. There might be some tears. That's a good possibility. Tammy might already get started right there. But yeah, so if you're seeing this, pop in your questions on the Facebook feed. If you want to share comments and reactions, we'll bring the message that Andrew and Tammy are going to share to more people. So your comments and questions are great, and sharing it, obviously. So my name is Uri Schneider from Schneider Speech, and we couldn't think of a better way to bring the message of understanding and hope and support, and also how people can be allies and how parents can be supportive and at the same time honor their parental instincts of concern for the well-being and protecting of their children and young offspring who are growing up. And then, of course, to hear from someone who stutters growing up, what that was all like, the experience of speech therapy, the experience of very caring parents, and then different formative experiences, both the challenging ones and also those that really propelled him forward. So without further ado, I give I asked these two to send me an intro, couldn't be more humble. Andrew says this about himself: he's a proud person who stutters. He is a master's student. Now, I don't know how to pronounce the Duke School of Business. Andrew, do you want to help me on that one?
There's a lot of different ways to pronounce it. I think Fuqua or Fuqua.
I'm going to leave it there. I thought I had a hard name. The Fuqua family, I think you should consider a name change, perhaps, if you don't want to get people in trouble. But the Fuqua School of Business at Duke, Andrew has experience overseas, and he's focusing on the intersection between finance and refugee advocacy. He is just an incredible person, and he's following his dreams and pursuits on a global level and keeping it real and changing lives. And Tammy is Andrew's mom, and she works at Citigroup, and she's been on this road with Andrew from day one, and just couldn't think of a better mom and son team to keep it real, to get us grounded. Obviously, an hour from now, we're going to speak with Joe Donaher, who comes from the greats of the clinical side and the research professional side. But to really hear it straight from a parent, to hear it straight from a person like Andrew, I think is the best way to kick off the day. So without further ado, thank you guys for taking the time. Would you like to introduce yourself or say anything that you think would be important that you'd like people to know?
Go ahead, Andrew. You first.
I think I'm all good. Thank you, Uri, for the introduction and the opportunity.
Yeah, I feel very grateful and fortunate to be part of this, Uri. And of course, as always, you know how priceless I feel that our sessions with you over the years, and you acting as Andrew's mentor even after those years, and taking that journey and bringing us towards that path. I couldn't think of a better place to be than other right now here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Well, it's very, goes both ways, mutually felt and mutually appreciated. I've learned a lot, and I've retold the stories of our first meeting and subsequent meetings and experiences many times. I think it's noteworthy. Andrew, do you remember, or maybe Mom, how old were you when we first met? It was more than 10 years ago.
I think I might have been 10 or 11, but my mom's memory is probably much better than my own.
Yeah, no,
but
that's
it's amazing.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't at your circumcision, and I missed your bar mitzvah. But other than that, I've really had the privilege to see you truly rise and shine. Your mom's line, that was a tribute. Your mom always would say, sunshine, your sunshine. So that was all a tribute to your mom's comment in that way. But you're no longer that 10-year-old kid. But even then, the two of you made a very strong impression. And then at the end of our work together, when you decided you really didn't need, to meet me on a regular basis, you had better things to do with your time, which is my hope. I always tell people when we meet, my goal is that you'll fire me, that you'll have better things to do. You'll be on your own. You'll have your own fire. You can hold yourself, independently, able to achieve everything you want to achieve. So that was a great moment. But I remember that when we first met, there's something I'll share. And then at that moment, you said to me, we want to give back to the community. And that's when I had to think of all sorts of ways to think where and how you could give back. And so you've done private mentorship, for individuals that have wanted that. You've connected with the SAY organization, the Stuttering Association for the Young, and Taro and the whole group, which has now gone international, obviously. Say.org, they've got great stuff going on today and ongoing for International Stuttering Awareness Day, and a little bit involved with the National Stuttering Association as well. So, I've seen you go through a lot. Maybe you guys want to just reflect on where you were at when we first met, like what brought you in? What was your mindset, Andrew, Mom? Like, why'd you come? Why'd we first meet, and what was going on then? And what did you think you needed? And what kind of unfolded from there? And then we can talk about everything in between.
Well, for me, I remember Andrew was probably around, he was probably in the 4th or 5th grade. And he was mocked, and it was very frustrating for him. And so he had wanted to express himself as somebody was, mocking him on a school bus, actually. And he got so frustrated that he punched the boy that was mocking him. And when he got off the bus, he was upset. And of course, so was I. You knew that tears were going to come, Uri, huh? After all these years. So
I just thought everybody should be prepared. I hope you were prepared with the Kleenex.
I probably wasn't. But needless to say, Andrew, I knew that I did not want to raise an angry child. And I think that everybody's voice needs to be heard. And I needed to find him the help. And my goal was to make sure that I raise a healthy, independent, confident young man, and not an angry, upset young man that would just be able to either stay quiet or use his fist as his voice. So that was the journey. We then met a speech therapist in Andrew's school. I didn't know what stuttering actually was. And she had guided us, and we were very fortunate enough. Her name is Mrs. Weinstein. And we were very fortunate enough that the reason why she became a speech therapist was because her son was a stutterer. And so she knew what Andrew had and knew that we needed more than what the school was able to offer us. And so along came you, Uri, and I asked for tools because I feel as though there were tools that I was able to work on. And the one memory that I have in terms of meeting you was that it was going to be a journey, and that the tools, I'll never forget actually what you said to me the first time is, you know what, Mrs. Carlins, it's really not Andrew's problem, it's yours. And that was a big wake-up call for me. And we had a list, I remember, I probably still have it somewhere, of things that I actually needed to do also. And that, I think, a combination of meeting you and getting those tools and recognizing that it's something that we have to do together was the journey that was a full-time commitment, which has been incredible. And the journey has, it continues. But I think that the path forward had opened up and has unleashed quite a young man, my sunshine. All right, Andrew, I don't know.
So just to just try to capture what I think is really important and really powerful for people if they missed it, which you so beautifully articulated, coming in, you were concerned not because Andrew was, I remember Andrew wasn't particularly insulted by that fella. It was just, and as I recall, I didn't punch him in the face. I think you had the courtesy to punch him in the stomach. That's my,
yes.
That's exactly as I recall, as if it was yesterday. And it was striking then, as it is now, that Andrew knew how to stand up for himself. And a lot of people think the answer to bullying is teach someone to push back. But what was exceptional from day one about the two of you, and I think is so poignant, is that let's say you learn to push back. Let's say you learn to punch back or say something super nasty back to them. First of all, that's not the best response to bullies. They're going to come back again. They see there's someone that wants to tussle. But more importantly, if you sell out and you stoop to their level, you know, you've kind of sold out your values and your principles. And I think that was what was, as I recall, would that be fair? That was the concern. You didn't want Andrew to be someone that relied on his fists to resolve these problems?
Absolutely. I wanted him to be able to use his words and to be able to not grow up feeling that that was the only way that he was able to communicate.
Right.
That was very important.
And it really highlights values and principles. You guys are extremely values and principles centered. And I'll pass to Andrew in a second, and then I'll share the memorable thing from that first meeting. But the thing that you said was you came in thinking that the answer was, the problem was Andrew stutters, kids are making fun of him, and he's using his fists. So clearly the solution's got to be that Andrew has to learn how not to stutter. And as you listen to it that way, anyone that's listening, you realize we often misappropriate the solutions to the wrong problem. So the problem here was not that Andrew was stuttering. The problem was that people were challenging him. He was standing up for himself, but in the process, he was stooping down to their level. He was selling out on his principles, his values, and his, you know, ethos. And that was the problem. So how do we help Andrew navigate that and stay high and stay strong? So the answer is not strategies. The answer is problem solving. The answer is courage, dignity, finding ways to talk his way through things and hold his head high and not rely on his fists, but also not be a punching bag for bullies. And it was quite a journey, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
You know, and it's not only children, you know, that's actually the sadder part.
Yeah.
Children, it's a little bit more forgiving. You may feel as though they don't know better. It's probably more accepting, but when it comes from adults or teachers, you know, you have to find a place to be able to stand up for yourself, regardless, that not only against your peers, but I would say against, you know, people that are much older than you. And I wanted to make sure that Andrew had that courage as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'm just getting some people trying to come into the Zoom room, which is a slight technical juggle. If anyone is having trouble, or you know someone that's having trouble, send them over to the Schneider Speech feed on Facebook. It's live there. It's also live on my feed. I don't know if Andrew and Tammy were able to share it yet, but it will be shared afterwards as well. But you can definitely see it on Facebook, Schneider Speech. If you're on a website, you can just go to facebook.com/Schneider Speech /live, and you should be able to see it. But again, share it or help people that want to find it. So Andrew, you want to bring us up to what you recall? I mean, you're a bright guy. You probably remember something, but it'd be interesting to hear your recollection, your memory coming in and why you came. Did you want to come?
So I think first I'd want to press play where my mom pressed pause on that same story on the bus. Afterwards, a bus driver kicked us both off the bus to go speak to some administrator at the school, and I remember the kid was very upset. And I had the school rule book open, and I had a whole debate about how many days of recess I should get versus he should get, because it was really just self-defense over bullying, and bullying was held to the highest regard of. So I guess even then, Uri, that points to the conclusion that you drew, that the issue was less of the stutter itself, but more of how the stutter had shaped my actions and my values. What I remember,
and it also explains why you didn't go on to law school, because already then you were lawyering up. You know, you took out the rule book and were able to make your case quite easily. Advocating for refugees, you needed to learn a thing or two, but lawyering up, you had good experience on the school bus and in the principal's office. Yeah,
I'll say my stutter did help me a lot with advocating for refugees, but we could talk about that maybe a little bit later. From that first meeting, I remember that you met, if I'm not mistaken, with just me in the room, just the adults in the room, and then with everyone together. Maybe my order is a little bit confused there. But I do recall you asking me one-on-one, do you have any secrets that you want to share with me? And I found that as a very weird question, because of course I didn't have any secrets. And who are you that I'm going to share any secrets that I don't have with? So I do recall telling you that I don't keep secrets from my family, which I'm very grateful that was and remains to be true. I feel very blessed in that regard. And I would say that first interaction was probably was a start of a long and continuous journey of you positioning yourself, at least from my perspective, as more of a coach than a doctor. Someone who was trying to be a friend and a mentor, and work outside of just the solution giving. Here's a set of tools. Of course, you knew the tools and you gave me some tools, and some of which I still use today. But I would say a lot of the from the first impression and continued throughout my time with you, was you being more of a mentor and someone who guides me along my journey.
Well, two things I want to comment on that. Number one, to highlight, how old were you?
I think it must have been 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So just for anyone listening, even a young person of 10 or 11, doesn't need to be pushed around like a puppet and just told what to do. So the thought that you could engage someone and give them the agency that they know what they want, or set up that kind of relationship such that it's not I, thou, it's not the doctor and the patient, is possible, not just with adults, not just with teens, but even, school age kids. And the other thing I want to highlight for anyone that heard that question, I have replayed the tape in my mind many times. And when Andrew said, do you have any secrets? It sounds really creepy to me. And I'm like really pedantic about words. So if I said that, I just want to own that was not good choice of words. But what I do recommend, and what we did do, and in the other room, I said the same thing to Mom and Dad, I believe. I said, do you have anything you want to share, not in front of your parents? Maybe there's something about this that you're not comfortable bringing up in front of the other. And I often will ask parents and ask the young person that. So it's not, hey, I'm a stranger, tell me all your secrets, here's a candy. That would be creepy and a bad idea. I also would encourage everyone to work with the door open, which I always do and always did. But what was striking then was that often young people will say something, because often they will say, my parents, to be honest, my parents mean well, they love me dearly, but they harass me. Every time I open my mouth, they're telling me to do this, do that, take a deep breath. And they mean well, but it's driving me nuts. And that's often what comes out. And I remember, and that was the most impressionable thing to me, not only that I knew not to tick you off because you punched me in the stomach, but besides that, I knew that you had a very, from the get-go, a very open channel with your family. And I remember verbatim, you said to me, no, we don't have secrets in our family. I remember that. My question was probably, do you have anything you want to tell me that you don't want to share in front of Mom? And you said, you looked at me with like the most puzzled look. What kind of wacky question is that? No, there's nothing that I wouldn't tell my mom. Like, why would you even ask that? So how precious that is. And for parents to know, that's the greatest gift, is somehow to be able to hang in the uncomfortable, awkward places and be there for the other, and not give up the concern that you have as a parent, but try to be there with that person where they're at. And that's something that your mom and dad gave you early on. And I remember it clear as day. I would hope that I dreamed then, and I dream now that my kids would have that. So that's one, on day one, the lesson I learned from you guys. Yeah. So I see we've got lots of people here checking in, and post your questions and comments. But we're here with Andrew and Tammy, Carlins. So we just got through the first meeting. Your mom shared what she got from that. You've shared what was awkward and weird. Coming out of that, then we set up this dynamic where you feel I wasn't like telling you what to do. It wasn't a mechanic shop. It was more of a coach mentor kind of thing. What did you think you needed coming in? Did you want to come? Do you remember? Do you remember like wanting to be there, or just kind of being compliant and getting towed along?
I don't. I think I was. I think my mom asked if I had wanted to have additional speech therapy outside of what the school was offering, and I had known the speech pathologist in the school for a while and respected her, and I knew that she had recommended seeing you. So I was happy to come, and I didn't know what to expect. So it was maybe going going on a great hike, but not knowing that you're even going on a hike to begin with. So that kind of feeling of this seems cool that it could help, but I was only 10. I didn't really understand what it was fully. I would say that metaphor is probably the best description of the feeling that I could give.
Okay, great.
I remember, Andrew, you were ready to go. That was like one thing that I do recall. So it was something that you were open-minded about, because I remember just having conversations with you all the time about how we were going to address this. And I also remember, fast forward, when you were ready and you said that I kind of reached my I don't even want to call it an end, but a new beginning with Uri in terms of, when your sessions would end. And I feel as though you were able to recognize on both sides where you were at such a young age, I must say. And Uri, you bring back such a vision to me, because I remember Michaela, right, who is 3¼ years younger than Andrew, and she would sit there ever so quiet in the back
on the red leather couch. If she wouldn't sit there with the magnetiles, she would sit in the back of the small room that we would sit in together. There was a couch love seat against the back wall.
Yes.
And she'd sit there kind of doing flips and all kinds of stuff off the couch. Yeah.
Yeah, or she had a game and she would just sit on the carpet, and she knew that it was quiet time for her. And she was so respectful of the fact that it was Andrew's moment. So you just brought back this vision.
I just want to apologize to Michaela if she watches this. I remember giving her, prizes and stickers and whatnot, but she did get shafted. She did not get as much of my attention. So
let her know.
Yeah. So what stands out next, Andrew? And if anyone wants, you go to our blog page. You can look up the Alchemist Secret if you want to know how to spell that. We're getting all kinds of help here today. How to pronounce the business school at Duke, Fuqua, kind of like foie gras, and then Alchemist, ALCHEMIST. So Andrew contributed that as a blog post, but we've done a lot of things together, Andrew. But maybe just in that first stages of therapy, what do you think is significant? What did you feel was helpful? What do you remember? And what were some things that maybe you wish wouldn't have happened? I'm thinking there are therapists that are going to watch this. There are parents, and there are people wondering what goes on in therapy. What does good therapy look like? And I guess this question, by the way, is probably a really good one. Ask the person in the midst of it, what did you like? What was most helpful? What would you like to do more of? What did you think was a little too much? What did you think was missing? So I'm pretty pedantic about that, and asking people in the midst, because I don't think I know what they want. Everyone's different. Everyone needs a different dish. Everyone has a different palate. Everyone's ready for different things. There's no one size fits all. So what do you remember? And you can be totally blunt. What was most helpful and what was least helpful?
So I remember you teaching me a set of tools. I think you called it a toolkit or toolbox, or to help with various disfluence, or I guess common disfluencies that I would face. I remember learning asking may instead of can, because the C was very hard, or maybe an easy onset on certain hard consonants. So instead of saying can, saying and if you put that in a sentence, people can't really notice. I remember that at the very beginning, and that was very helpful for what felt like exponential growth in fluency. I then remember and I thought that was the entire battle at the time. Those tactics have they become asymptotic. Like they can only help so much. So maybe second, third, fourth, after we got to know each other, that's when the focus of the sessions shifted a little bit away from just toolkits and toward more confidence building. So the story that you're mentioning, the one in the Alchemist's Secret blog, I actually published something, or I wrote something similar for my college essay. I think it's pretty much the same exact essay, maybe with a few like grammar changes. But the story behind that was I was in 5th grade, so I must have been, I guess, yeah, still 10 or 11. I can't remember what exact age it was. And I had it was kind of a business of like selling memorabilia to friends. The way I'd get the memorabilia, though.
You also sold soda cans. You were doing as I recall, soda cans and sports memorabilia, if I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't soda cans. It might have been silly bands, which rhymed, and it was a fad when I was a 5th grader.
Black market silly bands.
Yes. The way I'd get the sports memorabilia was I would write letters to different sports teams, ranging from your minor league baseball teams like the Long Island Ducks, for any Long Islanders out there, to Gatorade or the New York Yankees, the best baseball team of all time. And I would hope and wait for them to send a response. And I remember coming to Uri very upset that my business was failing, my first business, and I was going to be an entrepreneurial failure. And
I thought I was a speech therapist. Suddenly I was a business coach.
And you had told me to, like a really cost-effective way might be just to call them and ask. And when you call them, introduce yourself with your name and your standard introduction, but just add that you're also a stutterer. And don't be afraid to hide your stutter. And in fact, speak with your stutter very openly. And I was like, are you crazy? Because at the time, I distinctly remember not answering certain questions in class because I was like, I'm gonna stutter over this. I've already answered like 5 questions today. I don't need the extra like six question. That the marginal benefit of answering the question versus the cost of stuttering over it is like it doesn't weigh out. Like more practically, sometimes ordering dinner, I'd prefer someone to order for me. Again, just to avoid the stutter. Actually, till this day, ordering at restaurants is very awkward for me. Stutter inducing, and I don't know why, but that's okay. And you had asked me to call the sports teams in your office, and I took a leap of faith, and I trusted you because by that point I got to know you, and I felt a very strong connection. I remember calling the Long Island Ducks and doing exactly what you said and feeling kind of weird, hanging up the phone. And I remember that they sent me something, and that box at my door 2 weeks later was symbolic of, I think, a larger change in my psyche and approach towards my stutter.
That's when Michaela got really jealous because suddenly your business is booming. You know, this speech therapy guy is. So what's amazing, just anyone that's a budding business person, just realize what was the cost of shipping and handling and tax and purchase price on all that memorabilia that you were selling at school?
I've no idea. Do you mean the cost of sending letters out?
0. Well, it was no, because once you drop the letters, you didn't even have postage on sending letters. You just called them. So we'd call them.
Yeah.
We'd call them from my office. I think maybe I did the first call to kind of break the ice. But basically your parents paid me to give you business coaching, and then your business had no expenses because your parents were sponsoring your business coach. You'd get merchandise at the door. no shipping and handling, no tax, no fees. And then you were 100% profit as you sold it at school. Then you probably had to negotiate with the principal again, give him a cut.
All those
So
valuable
yeah, so
lessons, Uri.
very
He's now at
important. These
Fuqua.
are the life lessons we're talking about. Bring it, get real, bring it to life. But I think for anyone listening, what's special here also is to recognize when I found out about Andrew's business problem, I realized that was my opportunity to make the work a lot less abstract, a lot less boring, a lot less removed from what mattered most to Andrew. And I think that's part of the key of hooking in and figuring out what a young person is excited about. Andrew didn't need to drill, practice, mechanical techniques, but if we could figure out a way that he could do that in the midst of accomplishing real life interests of his, then that's the ticket. That's great.
Uri, I would say, just to add a little bit,
Yeah.
it wasn't conventional. And I think thinking out of the box the way that you did was very empowering for Andrew, because we spent all these years thinking about how to make it go away. And this problem that we needed to fix, when in fact you were like, it's yours. This is not all of you. This is just a part of you. And just like your arms and legs are a part of you, and you use it, use this. This is part of a good way of doing business, and you should call and own it. And for the first time, it was that aha moment that really clicked of, you know what, this is mom's problem. We're living in a fast-paced world, right? And everybody's in a nanosecond, and we're all trying to finish everybody else's sentences. That was like one of the valuable things that I took away, right? Is look, we can't all speak really quickly. Even my speed of talking is somebody's, slow. So it was that taking a moment of pausing and recognizing that just like any other body part or any other part of you, this is just another part of you. It's not what defines all of you. And that was because of your unconventional style that had that really amazing moment for Andrew, which of course brought happy tears. And I'd say with that, as I watched Andrew progress in terms of confidence, he was that boy that stood up on stage by time sixth grade came to run for treasurer and had to make a speech in front of 200 people, or cited Shakespeare in plays in high school. All of a sudden, he became that guy that felt empowered to take on these challenges, that, yes, I can do this. And you know what? I'm not sure if I can do this, but I'm going to try. And so he has then also made it his mission to pass that forward. And for me, for that matter, I've called you many times. Is there anybody that I can talk to or call or speak with? Because I think it's at that moment when you own it, all of a sudden you're not afraid of it. And somehow just the rest of your body parts just relaxed and accepted. And I think that was the breaking point.
I think that it's really powerful. I always wonder what helps parents get to that place where you come in thinking we need to fix the problem, and then you pay privately. I'll talk about that in a minute, but basically we failed. If the job was to fix the car still has these moments where it gets stuck, where the transmission has this little hiccup. But clearly, that wasn't so what for you, and you're focusing a lot, even on that first meeting. And I don't know if it was that abrupt, certainly not the way I would say it, but for you, what you're reflecting back is how strongly you took this idea that it was your concerns were not the same as Andrew's. And what Andrew needed was for you to get aligned with his needs and kind of get on that bandwagon. It sounds like, because you said it was your problem. How did you get from feeling it was your problem to getting into this?
Well, the way that it was explained, or at least the way that I remember it, is that it was almost a way that, or what I took out of sessions with you, that it's really not Andrew's problem person, right? That he has to talk a little slower, or maybe takes a little bit more time for his words to come out. It's maybe my patience of having to dedicate a little bit more time to get that comment out, as opposed to trying to finish his sentence, which was frustrating him, which then made him close up because he didn't want to talk, because I was trying to fill it all in a nanosecond, because that's the world that we live in. And recognizing that we have to pause, and pausing is good. And I used to then dedicate, I think it was advice that you had given us to start that path, was to just dedicate 15 minutes.
Right.
Just go into Andrew's room, and we would do that. We would go into Andrew's room, we would close the door, the whole world around us just got quiet, and we would talk. And whether that talking was 3 words, or it was 10 words, or it went into 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it was just that moment. And the family respected that. That was part of that. You gave us like this agreement, about what would work, what would not work, what frustrates me, what doesn't. And so getting back to your question, when I said that it was my problem, it was because I was expecting the same operation in terms of speed, thought, process, and that wasn't happening. And what I was ending up doing is frustrating and closing Andrew down further by doing the big don'ts that now I know not to. And that's what I meant by that it was actually me that also had to invest time to work on what this all meant. And I think at the end, it made us all very much more powerful listeners, which this world has a lot less of. So I think that's one big takeaway. There are many takeaways, Uri.
Yeah,
there were
that reminds me
many.
of another awesome story, but I want to give Andrew the mic much more, and Tammy, because they are far, there's so much good that they can share. I just want to say that from what Tammy was saying, I guess for anyone listening, I know how you experienced it, Tammy. I just wouldn't want any parent to live with any guilt that's their problem or their fault, or or they have to give up the hope that it could get better. Because as Andrew said, from his point of view, we did do things to explore physical strategies and whatnot. We did a whole lot also on the confidence and speaking freely and advocating for yourself. And what you're saying, which I think is super important, is that in any speech therapy, for most speech therapy, if someone, God forbid, has a stroke, the person who's a survivor doesn't bear the sole responsibility to sustain successful communication. Obviously, there's a dyad. And in the same way, for a young person who stutters, or for anyone, it's so important to have allies, especially in the home. And I think what you're highlighting is moving away from the feelings of guilt and responsibility, but looking to, wow, I can be a part of the solution. I can be a part of strengthening his experiences of success and feeling good and feeling heard no matter what. That's a very empowering message, as opposed to the guilt and shame and frustration that a lot of parents feel and doesn't get resolved if they're not in the process with the therapist.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. So Andrew, mic's yours, open mic, man. Like, how you go from the kid who's getting teased and punching people in the stomach, then you're hustling your business, and like, where did things go from there for you? Then mom said, you run for treasurer. You had the most business experience of any of the junior high schoolers there. Then you end up, giving back, and so how did things move for you, and what were some of the ways that the stuttering continued to show up? What were some of the ways that maybe the things that you went through with your mom, maybe with me, kind of fortified you through some tougher times? And then what are some of the, as Chris Costantino likes to say, what were some of the gains, some of the upsides, some of the ways that your stuttering experience and your working through it, living through it, actually propelled you to the head of the class?
Those are really good questions, Uri. I'm trying to think of concise ways to answer them.
It was meant to open-ended. I loaded too much there, Andrew. I do that often because you're so good. take anything, run with whatever you want, or none of it. Just go. Just open the tap. Let it flow.
Well, I think it's important for people listening, because looking back on stories, because I feel like a success story, and it's a really good feeling. And it's easy to piece together a string of events that small success after small success that leads to an ultimate feeling of a great success, and hopefully many more to come. But I think it's important to give some space in my response to some of my failures. So I didn't win 6th grade junior high treasure. I didn't stop stuttering. I still haven't stopped stuttering. I still sometimes struggle with a stutter, but have found ways, like what Uri was saying about working with the Stuttering Association for the Young, giving back and becoming a mentor. And Uri mentioned earlier that I've worked with refugees around the world, asylum seekers too, as ways that make me feel more confident in my own shoes, and I'm very passionate about the work. And these are communities often too who have trouble speaking up, not because they aren't smart and capable and gritty, which I think a stutter builds in a lot of people, but rather because they don't always know the words in the lingua franca, the main language of the region. And in that way, I found, since coming to college, really, I know I'm flashing forward quite a bit, but that the working with other communities is a great way for me to learn more about my own stutter, and that it's okay to stutter. I want to go
Just a quick lingua franca. Just keep the language simple so that we can all follow you. Not all of us have your vocabulary. But I'm just interrupting to acknowledge some really awesome people. I know my friend Brenda from Australia is here. I know Tom Sharstein is here from Florida, from the World Stuttering Network. We got some great people watching live. Your comments and your shares would be awesome. Andrew is such a shining star, and one who's going to continue to shine. You're going to want to remember you saw this. You're going to want to remember that you shared it with your friends, just as a human being. And Tammy Carlins is such an exemplary mom and what she's done. So there's a lot of wisdom here. So please share. Thank you for taking the time. But the playback will be available too if you have to go. But I just wanted to interject that. But it sounds like you took the experience of your stuttering and that you saw that there were other communities that were not being heard and didn't have the freedom of speech and the power of communication that they needed. And that ties into how you kind of connected with that. Is that what you're saying?
It does, but I think there's a few important steps in between there. One of which is an incredible research adventure that we did together. That you were so kind, and my mom encouraged me to reach out to you. Actually, that's what happened behind the scenes, which I'm not sure if I had mentioned that, because I had wanted in my pride to say it was my idea to begin with.
What you don't know is that there was open line of communication there too. It's okay. Everybody
Right.
wanted it to be your win, but I think, again, having allies, having champions behind you is so important.
Yeah, that is very true, Uri. So in high school, for I guess for context, every high schooler or in a certain research program was tasked with doing some kind of research project over the summer, and writing it up and submitting to science fairs or the like. Most people, because I'm from Long Island, New York, would maybe go into New York City and find like a biology internship, doing basic lab work at some hospital or some lab, which is pretty cool. But I just wasn't super interested in biology. I was more interested in the social sciences. So my mom had suggested that I reach out to you, Uri, and that turned into a whole research adventure of looking into different methodologies of stuttering treatment across America and Israel, with a focus on Israel. And I remember for me, the most powerful moment was standing on the stage next to you at the National Stuttering Association's conference and presenting our findings alongside you and Robin Croft to a crowd mixed of stutterers and parents of people who stutter and siblings and speech pathologists. And in a very kind of cheesy, cliche way, it felt like I'm really coming full circle. And it was a great way for me to kind of close out, or it was really opening my senior year of high school, but beginning of closing out my journey in high school and going into college. That was another really high moment that I wanted to highlight because of the impact that I think being able to look back on your journey and doing research about the ways that other people might are being coached to get to a point of confidence is a great way, and what was very freeing and empowering as well.
I just want to highlight what a treat that was and talk about full circle. You know, Robin was someone who was persistent to do an internship. I didn't know her from a hole in the wall. And for whatever reason, her persistence paid off. And today she's the recipient of the National Stuttering Association Research Award. She's on her way to get her PhD with Courtney Bird, who just was gifted a $20 million endowment from the Blank Foundation. So their good work is going to go forward. Robin is a key part of that, and Robin's going to be on for a conversation. But the three of us standing there, this budding professional, and then this aging, balding professional, yours truly, and then Mom in the front row over there, and then you, Andrew, standing there as the young man who was the hustling, card-selling, minor league baseball team calling, advocate, lawyer, treasurer, wannabe, whatever, suddenly taking the stage, you know, in a professional big hall with a whole convention projector behind you, and the three of us co-presenting. It certainly was a coming of age moment, and a very special one indeed. Yeah. So what do you think, what would you say about the stuttering gains? What would you say stuttering maybe has given you? And I don't know, would you say that if you could do it all over again, if you could go back, hit pause, take a pill, you know, would you go that route, choose your own adventure? Or are, in hindsight, there were ups, there were downs, there were easy times, there were tough times, but you kind of feel that it added and contributed to your journey so far?
So as I'm really grateful for where I am and who I am and support that I have, and because of that, and not just limited to stuttering, but I wouldn't change much, if anything, about my background, because that's what got me to where I am today, and I'm not sure the impact of changing one thing. When I look back on stuttering, and I'm pretty open about this, actually, Uri, and this is, for those listening in, I haven't told Uri this, but I have an unfinished homework assignment for my communications class. They had tasked us to give a 2-minute presentation on somebody who's impacted you significantly and why, and just an introduction of different people in the class. It's a class of about 20 people, all different ages from around the world, and the person I chose was Uri. But the professor said if the person was still around and able to listen in, I was to share the video. So I hope my professor isn't listening, but I owe you that video, Uri, of what I said about you there. Because in that video also I reflected on the upside stuttering, which I attribute a lot of my knowledge of the upside, or realizing that stuttering has some upsides, to my time with you. Some of the upsides include an incredible ability to listen to others, because I know how difficult it is to speak. They include a very distinct intentionality with the words that I say. Even though sometimes I misquote people, I do choose my words very carefully, because I have a background, and I'm more fluent now than I was as an elementary schooler. But that impact of being fairly disfluent as an elementary school and middle schooler, and still having some disfluencies, has shaped me to make sure that the words that I say are heard and very, very intentional. And the third way, and maybe most important way that a stutter has some gains, or has shaped me positively, is developing a great sense of humor, particularly around puns. Because I remember when I first met you too, Uri, you had described that I would go around in a circle. I would hedge words that might stutter. So I would have to think of 20 million different ways of saying the same thought or same idea. And that kind of thinking has translated today into making great puns, because when I hear rock, are you talking about rock music or the Rolling Stones or pop rock candy?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
preparation for you in that regard was that in one way that I am an exceptional dad is like I'm awful with the dad jokes. So the puns, the corniness, I'm in. So that was a good fit. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that's all I would say about the gains, Ori. I would also like to share that these are things that I'm fairly open with. I shared with my class openly. Even in interviews, I'm very grateful to have had a lot of incredible opportunities. And in nearly every interview that I could remember, that was high stakes, high pressure, that I really wanted the opportunity, I shared openly that I had a stutter, and that I owned it, and I shared, because I have a stutter, I'm a better listener. I communicate very intentionally, and I have a great sense of humor. And I found that 99 times out of 100, that really left a mark on people. So much so that in later stages of interview rounds, or after they accepted an offer, or after they extended an offer, they had explicitly mentioned, it really touched me, the way that you mentioned your stutter and how it impacted you.
I think that's stunning. We are running out of time, but I just want to highlight for anyone that wants to track like a framework, there's self-knowledge, which is like understanding what stuttering is and what communication is and what's relevant to you. There's self-adjustment, which is what we call like working on ways to explore. What are some ways, if I talk like this, I might get stuck more. Oh, okay, that's interesting. And if I talk like this, I get stuck less. It still might not pay off. It might be too effortful or too much mental muscle. But okay, at least I get an understanding of what are some things I can do physically to influence my ease of getting the words out. The third thing is self-acceptance. And what I'm hearing from people is the fourth, self-advocacy, but putting it on the table. You might be comfortable in your skin, but until you kind of broach it with the other person, the interviewer, it stays as an elephant in the room. And it sounds like you've put it on the table and you found that more times than not, it's seen as an asset, as a strength, the courage and the openness that you put it out there. That's tremendous. Tammy, I didn't feel right ending without giving you last opportunity, and we could definitely do more and have a second, third, fourth meeting like this, but was there anything that you wanted to leave us with, any parting wisdom?
I would like to tell everybody that you're not alone, and that there are millions of stutterers out there. And even though in your own community, you may feel as though you are very alone trying to solve this problem on your own, you're not alone. There are tons of amazing organizations. There are people like Uri that are out there trying to help, one child at a time. And through my journey with Andrew, again, as Andrew expressed it, recognizing that you have a stutter and recognizing that you're not alone and that there are tools and ways to advocate for yourself. Andrew is, my beacon, and I constantly and continuously learn from him. And it's a journey, and, the outreach is there, and you should reach out as much as you need to in terms of being able to get the right help and define your own success. One person's success in a stutter may be very different than another person's success in a stutter. And then I'd like to say thank you, Uri. And I love you, Sunshine, so much. You warm my heart every day.
Love you. Thank you, ma'am. You're on mute, Uri.
It's better that way. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. I want to thank you, and I hope that we can have another round two, because there was so much, even in that last little 30-second spiel that Tammy did, that could be unpacked. And I know Andrew probably is going to contact me later and say, I think I just scratched the surface, and he's right. Go back and have another round, but I just want to thank everybody. Share it. There's great value here, and to finish with Tammy's point, know that you're not alone. Find people that you can talk to. There are parent groups, there are teen groups, there are adult meetups, whatever we can do at Schneider Speech and all these other great organizations. There's help out there more than ever before. So thanks everybody. Have a beautiful day. Make it meaningful. Tell someone something so that more people understand what stuttering is and what it's not. Tell people things so that more people who stutter, more young people, more adults, are treated with the dignity and respect and understanding that every human being deserves. So with that, ta-ta for now. Lehitraot, as we say in Hebrew. Shalom. Till next time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
All the best. Bye-bye. See you
Bye.
later.